Hello and welcome to this FPL Summer Signings rated video with me, Holly Shand. It's been a busy transfer window so far, lots of premium players added to the game or maybe change club. So I'm going to run down some of my favourites and give you my rating on them. I was on FPL Juice earlier this week, so it's going to be a rate or a slate inspired by them. If you are new around here, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments which summer signing are you most excited about in FPL this season. Let's get into it. So I'm going to start off with Raheem Sterling, who has had his big money move to Chelsea, and I think he could be a fantastic option in FPL this season. The only thing that really hindered him during his time at Manchester City was a lack of game time. I think that Thomas Tuchel will set up his Chelsea side to suit Sterling, maybe go to a 4-3-3, and I think with a few more minutes he could really benefit. You know, the seasons in the last 3 or 4 years where he's played over 2,500 minutes, he's smashed the 200-point barrier in FPL at Chelsea. He's definitely a rate. Now, the biggest signing of the window so far, and probably won't be topped, is Erling Haaland. At the moment, I'm on the fence. I can't say whether it's a rate or a slate on this one. Personally, if I'm going with a 2 premium lineup in game week 1, the only reason I would get Haaland in over Kevin De Bruyne is because I'm scared of his ownership, but it's not really the way I want to play the game. I want to be brave and trust my gut. The thing is with Haaland is he is unproven in the Premier League, so we don't know how he's going to get on in Pep's system or with the demands of Premier League football, and he does have a poor injury record, and both of those two things worry me. However, if I do triple up on premiums, probably to get the funds out and save the 0.5, I would go Haaland over Kevin De Bruyne, so I'm firmly on the fence on this one. The next signing I want to discuss is Liverpool's Darwin Núñez. Now, right now, I just cannot get on board with his price and position. He's the same as Jota, but when you look at the fact that you've got Luis Diaz listed as a midfielder, who's arguably going to play more game time, I do think that Núñez is a slate right now. I think he'll share game time with Diogo Jota in that front three, and I also think the wingers will be more prolific in Klopp's system. As we've seen in previous seasons, it's all been about Salah and Mane, with maybe the player playing that number 9 role like Firmino underperforming compared to the wingers. So I think you're better off from Liverpool investing in their attackers that are listed as midfielders rather than the forwards. So for me, Núñez is a slate. Gabriel Jesus has signed for Arsenal from Manchester City, and I'm really excited to see how he does in the Premier League this season. Obviously, Arsenal have got the best opening fixtures of any Premier League team, so I think it's important to get on a slice of their attack. I think Gabriel Jesus will play more minutes than the midfielders, who maybe will rotate. I think Saka and Jesus are kind of on a par in a little bit, but the thing to consider is that Jesus could be a really good option for our forward lines, and it's a position that we struggled with last season. I also think he might be on penalties as well. That's something to keep an eye on in pre-season. So for me, Jesus is a rate. Next up, we've got Richarlison, who has moved to Spurs, and right now I cannot see him getting into that Spurs front three in the Premier League. I suspect that he's been brought in by Conte to play some minutes in European fixtures and domestic fixtures. We've got the 5 subs rules as well, so I think he will get a few minutes in the Premier League, but we're maybe going to see him more predominantly from the bench, with Son, Kane and Kulusevski being that settled Spurs front three. So, you know, game time is the most important thing in FPL. They can be the best asset in the world, but if they're not on the pitch, they're not going to score as fantasy points. So for me right now, Richarlison is a slate. Sticking with Spurs then, and Ivan Perisic has signed for Spurs. He's listed as a defender, 5.5 million. As a player that I've watched a lot of his career playing as a left winger, it's really exciting to see him in that defender position. I think there's bags of potential from him. There's a few concerns around his fitness in pre-season, so that's certainly something to keep an eye on. But if it looks like he's going to be a starter for game week 1, I think he could be a lock in our fantasy teams. We know how prolific fullbacks are under Antonio Conte, and Spurs defensively really improved under Conte last season, and they have made some big signings as well that are going to further stabilise that defence. So for me, Perisic is a rate. Next up, we've got Arsenal's Fabio Vieira, who has signed and is an option at 6 million for our fantasy midfield. However, every time I look at this Arsenal midfield, I do feel like it's very, very saturated. We've got Martinelli, Smith Rowe, and Nketiah coming in the attack as well, Odegaard, Saka, and then we've got Vieira in there, who could admittedly play further back, but there's just too much competition for places in this Arsenal midfield, and even if he did get the minutes in midfield, I don't think he's going to be a prolific player when it comes to attacking returns in terms of goals and assists. So I think if you are investing in the Arsenal attack, you're better off looking at the likes of Saka and Jesus. So for me, Vieira is a slate. Next up, we've got Nick Pope, who has had his big money move to Newcastle United. You would imagine that he's been brought in to be first choice, given the amount Newcastle United have paid for him, but they do have options in goal. So that provides a little bit of uncertainty for me. And even though Pope has been a very good goalkeeper over previous seasons in FPL, I do feel like that 5 million price point is a little bit tricky, especially when you look at what else you can get that price point for 5 million, like Edouard Mendy at Chelsea. So for me, I think the uncertainty over starts from the off, and the fact that, you know, he comes in at the same price as a premium goalkeeper from another club means that right now Pope is a slate. Next up, we've got Pereira, who has just signed for Fulham from Manchester United, 4.5 million midfielder. I'm really excited about this because he's been priced to be a bench player at Manchester United. However, he has got attacking potential. So to come over to Fulham and play in that attacking role, I think is really going to suit him. Certainly, if you're lining up without a 5-man midfield, then he needs to be your go-to 4.5 million midfielder to have on your bench, and keep a close eye on him in pre-season, because if he is getting the minutes and he's really suited to this Fulham attack, he could potentially be a starter for our FPL sides. But I just think Fulham's fixtures early on in the season mean that he can only really be a bench player initially, but for me, he is a rate. Now, the final player on this list is Neco Williams, who has just signed for Nottingham Forest from Liverpool, and we've seen when he has come in this Liverpool side as cover for Trent Alexander-Arnold, he's done really well. He's a very attacking fullback, so he's another defender who has got that potential for attacking returns in terms of goals and assists. Nottingham Forest, the promoted side that came in through the playoffs, so we don't quite know how to measure their prospects. They've had a lot of key personnel changing over the summer as well. So I think with that uncertainty, you would want Neco Williams as your 4th or 5th defender who's on your bench, depending on what formation you play with. But in terms of locking in a bench asset, I think Neco Williams is one that's come into play now at the cheapest price point in the game. So for me, he's a rate. That's 10 summer signings covered then in their FPL prospects with that rate or slate. Thank you to FPL Juice for the inspiration for this video, having gone on their pod last week. So if you haven't caught up with that yet, please do. I want to know in the comments as well if you agree or disagree with any of those. I imagine Haaland is going to be quite a controversial one, but hopefully not too many disagreements with the other options. If you are new, please give this video a like, a subscribe to the channel, and I'll be back with an update on my latest draft in the next video. So look out for that one dropping in the next couple of days. Bye for now.